up to 3 a.m. Pacific, 6 a.m. Eastern. Lots of stuff to get to, but we begin with the AFC. And I wanted to start there because in terms of which quarterbacks are under the most pressure, because the AFC has been established as a dominant conference. And the big reason why is because of Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. You got a couple stud rookies coming in now, too. C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. It's going to be very tough to make the playoffs. The AFC's loaded. And so it's going to require your quarterback to be that difference maker. These are the 5, and these are no in particular order other than when I get to number one for a reason. I'm going to start, these are the quarterbacks I believe under the most pressure. I'm going to start with Tua, and I'm a Tua fan. I've always believed in him. He was last year, actually, believe it or not, Tua became the first Dolphins quarterback to lead the NFL in passer rating since Dan Marino did 38 years ago. And Miami averaged almost 7 yards of play with Tua as a starter, most by any quarterback in the league who started at least 10 games last year. Here comes the rub. Tua missed what was basically 6 games due to concussions. And that included Miami's first playoff matchup in 6 years. They had to start Skylar Thompson in Buffalo. So there are people who actually wanted Tua to retire after what he went through last year. And he admitted he actually considered it for a minute. But here's the deal. The reason there's pressure on Tua, he has to prove he can stay healthy. He has to prove he can build on the flashes he showed last year. Of course, Tyreek Hill predicts Tua is, quote, going to go crazy. I think it'd be a great story if he did. In the AFC East is crazy. Mac Jones, I think there's pressure on Mac Jones this year. 2022 is a rough one. But wouldn't it be if Matt Patricia was your offensive coordinator? They went 10-7 and made the Pro Bowl as rookie campaign. Jones can play. Make no mistake. If you don't think he can play, you don't know what you're looking at. He did regress last year to 6-8. As a starter, lost a couple games to Bailey Zappi. Patriots only averaged 18 points a game. And obviously, Brian Hoyer stepped in. Bailey Zappi stepped in. And there were some question marks there, but I've never not once believed that Mac Jones can play if you just put him in a normal situation. But this season's important because New England has to make a decision on Mac Jones' 5th-year option next offseason. And so I'm not sure that they're sure if they believe he's their quarterback of the future. And it doesn't help that Jones is probably in the most loaded division. You got Buffalo, I just mentioned Miami, and of course the rejuvenated New York Jets. I don't know that people have high expectations for the Patriots, but the fan base doesn't like losing. They're not used to losing. I'm of the belief the Patriots can be 9-8. It just depends. They'll have a very good defense. And again, forget what happened last year. There were injuries, and Matt Patricia, just invoking the name Matt Patricia should tell you what you need to know. He's gone. Bill O'Brien will have a good effect. Remember, those two had history at Alabama. Be that as it may, there's pressure on Jones. There's also pressure on Deshaun Watson. I hear people defending him. You don't need to defend him. Just let him get on the field and play. Again, like I said about Justin Fields and any other quarterback you have questions about. Forget the speeches. Don't tell me. Show me. The Browns went all in on Watson. $230 million guaranteed. Can you imagine if that turns out to be a fugazi and it doesn't work out? So we'll throw him a hall pass because he served the 11-game suspension last year. You know why. Watson went 3-3 as a starter, looked very underwhelming, only averaged 183 passing yards per game, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. With Watson as the starter last year, the Browns averaged a whopping 16 points per game, which ranked 26th. All right? You want to get that stench off your hands? Return to the Deshaun Watson you had in Houston. Now, everybody's expecting him to be improved in 2023, but he's got to be more than just improved. He's going to have to be the guy that looks worthy of that monster contract. And the offense is set up for success. The Browns have an absolute stud in Nick Chubb. They have a good, talented offensive line. Plenty of pass catchers, including as well. Plenty of pass catchers as well, especially tight end David Njoku. So the long and the short of it, I think fans are expecting Watson to look like a legitimate star this season. He's going to have to do it. He only completed 58% of his passes last year. 6.4 yards per attempt. Terrible numbers. Let's see what he does this year. And yes, there are 230 million reasons why the pressure is on Deshaun Watson, and he's got a good team around him. Number 2, again, these are in no order till I get to number 1. I have number 1 for a reason. Look, Aaron Rodgers, you're kidding yourself if you don't think there's pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be a Hall of Famer no matter what happens. But Aaron Rodgers wants and frankly needs to add to his legacy by pulling a Tom Brady and going to another team and winning a Super Bowl with his new team. End of story. Those are the expectations the Jets have entering 2023, despite having not even made the playoffs in 12 years. Now, for the last several years, Rodgers has been not just a star, but a very polarizing star. You put someone like that in the biggest media market in the world, and you can make the case Rodgers might be shouldering the most pressure of anyone in the NFL heading into 2023. And what's interesting is if Rodgers really wants to accomplish what Brady did by winning his Super Bowl with his new team, he's going to really have to defy NFL history. Because of the previous 8 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks who were traded by a team they won the Super Bowl with, none of them ever made it back to the Super Bowl. Only one of them ever won a single playoff game. Now, there is some evidence that suggests that Rodgers should have success in New York. He's one of 5 quarterbacks who's won 3 or more MVPs. Still looks like he's got every tool in the box, if you ask me. Each of the other 4 quarterbacks played for multiple teams also, and half of them won Super Bowls with their second club. Now, Rodgers last season had a career-low passer rating as a starter, 91.1, through 12 picks, which was one short of his career high. And he is 39 years old, but I'm not willing to believe he's regressing, because he did win 2 of the last 3 MVPs, and last year in Green Bay was just a dumpster fire all the way around for multiple reasons. It was almost like a sign of things to come. I think the first or second play of the entire season, Christian Watson wants a straight go route, beats his guy by 2 yards. Rodgers puts the ball right on the money, and he drops it. Cam, a tight shot on Rodgers, his head drops. That was a metaphor for the whole season. Bottom line, let's see if Rodgers can be the missing link, the difference maker in the Jets to get them to the promised land. You're in the number 1 media market. He said the Super Bowl trophy looked lonely. If you don't believe there's pressure on Aaron Rodgers, I don't know why you believe that. But number 1, this is an easy one for me. Who has the most pressure of any quarterback in the AFC? It rhymes with Russell Wilson. Russ is going to have to cook. Bronco fans, I'm guessing, have rope burns from the rosary praying that Sean Payton can fix Mr. Wilson. Denver, they gave up 5 picks and a couple players to the Seahawks for Wilson last offseason, gave him a lucrative contract, $161 million before he ever played a single snap. And after Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts contracts this offseason, Wilson is still the 4th highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. Now, we don't need to recap what a bad year it was last year. We know Denver went 4-11. He had career worst in everything. Pass percentage, passing touchdowns, passer rating. Broncos had the worst scoring offense in the NFL for the first time ever in their franchise history. Now, was the Broncos' 2022 campaign all Wilson's fault? No. And obviously their first-year coach struggled. Fair. The roster had multiple notable injuries. Fair. But did Wilson look like the quarterback he was in Seattle? No. So add it all up, it was the perfect storm. This is a major storyline to watch. The Payton-Wilson marriage. First primary quarterback head coach duo in history to work together after they both won Super Bowls at their previous stops. So they're expecting a lot out of Russell Wilson this year. He is under pressure for a couple of reasons. One, if Russell Wilson looks as bad as he did last year, I think the Broncos will look to get rid of him. He's 35 years old, not getting any younger. How would that affect his legacy, especially when you consider the fact Seattle surprised the world by making the playoffs last year with Geno Smith, Russell's former team. He was Russell Wilson's backup. You get where I'm going with this. All of a sudden, he becomes the comeback player of the year. So Russell Wilson not only has to rebound from last year, he's got to be careful that if he doesn't rebound, he might end up being the trivia answer for one of the worst NFL trades in recent memory. Next up, we rank the